Good morning, Wildcats. Today we are going to be going through the first part of the Unit 10 lecture, which is focusing on DNA. So part one, we're going to be focusing on DNA structure. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay, this gorgeous male lion. Why do lions have manes? Where did that trait come from? What exactly is what exactly is it that parents pass to their children? So the other lion had this big, gorgeous mane. It had to have come from somewhere. Well, more than likely, got it from his parents. Another question we're going to be talking about in this unit is what exactly is the chromosome made up of? I know that seems a little foreign, but we're going to go over it in just a minute. We are starting off with DNA. At this point, you guys should know at least a little bit about DNA, know that it is in every single one of our cells and it codes for how we are, right? Whether we have health issues or not, the color of our skin, the texture of our hair, all of that is found in the coding of our DNA. So knowledge recap, box A, what is DNA? DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Haven't said that in a while. That's why I choked up on it. Sorry. It is what makes up chromosomes. It contains your genes. It's your genetic code. And once again, if I'm going too fast, all you need to do is press pause. I'm not going to sit here for 5 minutes to wait for you to write this, okay? So press pause if you need more time. Box B, where is DNA found? So DNA is found in the nucleus of a eukaryotic cell or in the cytoplasm of a prokaryotic cell. So remember, eukaryotic cell is the cell that has a nucleus. Okay, they're bigger, they have nucleuses, they also have other membranous organelles. Whereas prokaryotic cells don't have any membranous organelles. So because there are no membranous organelles, there's no nucleus. Okay, DNA is also found in all living things. So what do you know about DNA? Okay, so far we know that genetic info that parents pass to offspring. It has nucleotides in it. The shape is a double helix, so it looks like a spiral twisting staircase. I'm sure many of you guys have seen that in some sort of old house pictures. So nitrogen bases are going to pair TACG. A pairs with T, C pairs with G, and it codes for proteins. Okay, once again, if you needed more time to write this down in your doodle sheet, please press pause. I am switching. So box D, how is DNA related to chromosomes and genes? Okay. Chromosomes are organized strands of DNA. Genes are segmented on the DNA strand. Sorry, I know that's kind of hard to read. Once again, that's chromosomes are organized strands of DNA, and genes are segments on the DNA strand. So chromosomes are organized. So this is a chromosome. It is packed neatly inside the nucleus, right? And this is made up of very organized strands of DNA. So it's kind of like when you make a braid and then you braid that braid into rope and then you store that rope somewhere. Okay, so activity 1. So right now you should be taking the time to do activity 1. It is in the study guide. You don't know where the study guide is, you can find it in, sorry, I know this might look a little different. This is definitely the teacher's view. Activity guide, click on that. And then you are going, right here you'll have a thing that says my document. You're going to click on that. Once again, this is the teacher view. So it's going to be a little different. And then it will generate your own copy of this document. So basically, activity 1, you're just going to click on this. You're going to watch a narrated animation. So you're going to be watching a video and you're simply going to be answering the questions to that video. You guys have done this hundreds of times. Whenever there was a sub at any of your other classes, you've had to take video notes. So that's essentially is what this is for you, this one. Okay. Okay, back to lecture. Okay, box E. So DNA structure. So DNA has two strands like a ladder, and it has sides of sugars and phosphates. So these are the ladder strands, and it has sides of sugar and phosphates. The rungs are going to be nitrogen bases. G is going to pair with C. And just to help you remember, we have get closer. And then A compares with T. I'm so sorry, that was my allergies. Oh, an entire ladder is twisted into a double helix. So once again, it's kind of just, this isn't a very good animation of it, but these would be twisted together instead of pinched in this video. And here we have the visual of C, G and C. So this is going to be G and C. So the purple and yellow, those are matching up. And A and T, there we go. The A and T, the thin line and the okay, DNA song, listen to it. I know this seems silly, but it will help you remember, even if it is kind of annoying. I know that I actually really enjoyed listening to this. It's kind of weird, I know, but it will help you remember it. So please listen to this. If I play it for you, you will not be able to hear the sound. So please go back to this slide and listen to it for yourself. Another one, once again, play it for yourself. If I play it, you will not hear the sound. Okay, now we are at box F. So what is the relationship between DNA and RNA? Okay, so DNA and RNA. They are both made up of chains of nucleotides. So they are both made up of chains of nucleotides. DNA lives in the nucleus. But what about RNA? We're going to have to learn a little bit more about that. Okay, so key terms. DNA. A molecule that carries genetic information. A nucleotide is a monomer or subunit of DNA and RNA that are made up of three parts: sugar, phosphate group, and a nitrogen base. So if you need to, press pause. And a nitrogen base. Okay, DNA versus RNA. So DNA is a little bit different. Okay, one of the main differences is that, looking at this visual, DNA has just an H here, and RNA has an O here. So RNA is going to have an extra oxygen molecule attached to it. Also, instead of a T, RNA is going to have a U. So whenever you're transferring from DNA to RNA, the T becomes U. So if you see that just switched out, but it would still code to match with an A. Okay, so compare and contrast. We're at box G. Compare and contrast DNA and RNA molecules. So DNA is a double strand. It has a deoxyribose sugar, so it's a deoxified ribose sugar, because over here, remember, it has one less oxygen. And the nucleotides are going to be A, T, C, and G. RNA is a single strand. It has ribose sugar, so it's not deoxyribose because it does not have, it is not missing an oxygen, and U instead of T. So the things that it has in common is that it is made up of chains of nucleotides, monomers. There's 3 nucleotides in common. A, C, and G, there's both 5 carbon sugars, and they both have phosphate groups. So I know there's not really a spot for the things that are the same, but you can just put a little line that says same in one of them and draw an arrow to the other. That's fine as long as you write it down. Okay, H, parts of a nucleotide. So we have the sugar portion. In DNA, it's deoxyribose. So there's one less oxygen there than here. This is just normal ribose. They have the same phosphate, which is going to be PO4, phosphate oxygen 4. And then the nitrogen bases, guanine, cytosine, adenine, thymine over here. And then we have guanine, cytosine, adenosine, and uracil. I haven't said that one in a while. Forgive me if I said that wrong. So this base is going to be a little bit different than the DNA. Some questions remain. What exactly does DNA do? How does it do it? And what does RNA have to do with anything? Like if we have DNA, why do we need RNA? Right? So what we already know is that DNA is the molecule of life. It is folded up into chromosomes, and those chromosomes live in the nucleus of a cell. Parents give offspring DNA as chromosomes. DNA contains genes that determine traits. But what is a gene? And how does it pass on traits? Oh, box I. Is there a pattern? So here are some cases. I know this is a lot of information. Bear with me for a second. But these are some examples of genetic disorders. So Huntington's disease is a defect in the gene for the protein huntingtin. PKU, a defect in the gene for enzyme phenylalanine hydrolase. Ooh. Sickle cell anemia, a defect in the gene for protein hemoglobin. Androplasism, and a lot of these you have heard a lot in the former lections. It's a defect in the gene with a protein fibroblast growth factor. Marfan's disease, a defect in the gene for fibrin. Cystic fibrosis, a defect in the gene. Tay-Sachs disease, a defect in the gene. Progen, defect in the gene. Neurofibrosis, defect in the gene. So is there a pattern to the underlying cause of these diseases? What do you think a gene does, right? What kind of information must be in a DNA molecule? I don't know what you guys, but I am definitely seeing some sort of a pattern, right? So take a second, write down what you think this does, okay? Once again, if you need to press pause, press pause. Okay, gene, keyword, is the section of a DNA molecule that contains the instructions for one protein. Protein, a chain of amino acids coded for by DNA. These are the building blocks of life, such as pigment structure, hormones, and enzymes. Amino acids, monomers, or subunits that make up a protein, a molecule. DNA, so we are going to add this to your previous definition. So if you go back to the first page, there's your DNA. Add this to your definition there. Okay, below box F. So DNA, molecule that carries genetic information, equals information for making proteins. Okay, how do we know that DNA contains the instructions for protein building? How do we know that DNA contains instructions for protein building? So the G's, C's, and A's are letters in a language that tells our cells how to make proteins. Our DNA is like a giant recipe book for all the proteins our body needs. And it is in those proteins that makes each of us unique. There are about 20,000 through 25,000 recipes, and every cell in our body has a complete set of them. So it's kind of like how the internet has a ton of information, and that information can be accessed by pretty much every household with a computer, right? Except it would be like a giant encyclopedia, and everyone has one that has all of the information that the internet has. Crazy, right? So what do we need to know to build a certain protein? What do we need to know? What do we have to do? How do we read this recipe? Okay, for example, we're looking at human insulin. We need to know how many amino acids total are in 2 chains of insulin. The gene for insulin does contain 153 nucleotides. Let's look at a couple other examples of proteins and the genes that code for them. So we're going to be analyzing DNA. So look at the nucleotides and amino acids for osteogenesis imperfecta and PKU. Compare the number of amino acids to the number of nucleotides. How does the code work? Record your thoughts in box J and K. Okay, this is a lot, I know. This is the gene sequence for PKU, and this is the gene amino acid sequence for PKU. So if this is the gene sequence, and this is the amino acid sequence, I'm noticing this has the number of 1,356 bases, DNA bases. Wow, that is equivalent to 452 amino acid bases. Just out of curiosity, let's take, you can't see this, but I'm pulling up my handy dandy phone calculator. So 1,356 divided by 452. That is 3. Exactly 3. So each of these 3 DNA bases codes for 1 amino acid. So for example, ATG, you got to find the match. Oh, this is the wrong one. Okay, so this doesn't have the code for it, but ATG would code for a specific DNA or specific amino acid on this. And this just goes through that. PKU, there's 1,356 total bases, and that is going to equal 452 amino acids, while osteogenesis imperfecta, 4,098 DNA bases divided by 3 is going to give us 1,366 amino acids. Okay, analyzing DNA. Compare the number of amino acids to the number of nucleotides. So in box J, do you notice any similar patterns in comparing the numbers of amino acids to the nucleotides that's code for them? You should, because I kind of gave it to you. So, what hypothesis can you make about how the code works? What hypothesis can you make about how the code works? I write it down. This is what you think, so I'm not giving you the answer. I know it's really annoying, but I believe in you. Say codons. Oh, look at that. See, we have our 3 DNA bases that is coding for 1 amino acid. And what does this word codon has to do with it? Let's see. Codon, key turn, write it down, is a 3-letter sequence of nucleotides in DNA that codes for a single amino acid. So these 3 DNA bases are called a codon. Those 3 are coding for a single amino acid, which is this one, this single amino acid. Okay, remember, pause if you need to. So DNA is the plan for building proteins. So 3 DNA bases code for 1 amino acid. Those 3 DNA bases is the codon, right? You're going to need a DNA decoder. Okay, this is basically a cheat guide for how things work. Okay, so this is going to be the first base in the codon, the second base in the codon, the third base in the codon. So if the combination is, for example, CAG, so you're going to go first base, C, A, and you're going to look for G, G. So that would code for gin. So that is a very specific amino acid. This is another visual. I personally prefer this one. It just makes more sense to me. However, everyone's brain makes different. So maybe this one makes more sense to you. That's okay. So in this one, if we're looking for CAG, we're going to start in the middle and move out. Okay, so the first codon is here, the next one is here, and then G goes for gene, which is the main word. The whole word is glutamine. Okay, so like I said, I like this one. However, you may like this one. Everyone's a little different, and that's okay. Okay, box L, this is going to be our last one for the day. Okay, box L is the genetic code. So, fact, the code is identical for every living organism. So the significance for this, what do you think the significance of this? Why do you think this is important? Okay, so take a second, write that down. So I am stopping this lecture here because I think the next part just goes into a completely different topic, and this would have to be double the size. However, next week is going to be more heavy on the activity guide. So just be prepared for that. You can start some of it now. This is just how I chose to break up the work, but you're at home. You can do this however you want, whatever makes sense for you. I know many of you guys have other classes that are also keeping you busy. But if you choose to go ahead, go on, and I will be working on the next video hopefully today.